Nexus, today's show, free at last. Malaysia's most famous prisoner, Anwar Ibrahim, has been released. He's now looking forward to becoming the country's next leader. How did that happen? Well, it is a complicated story full of twists and turns, so we're going to concentrate on the three main characters. Anwar is today's comeback kid, but he owes his freedom to the man who pretty much put him there in the first place, his former boss, the 92-year-old Mahathir Mohamad, who won last week's election to become the world's oldest leader. And then there's the man he defeated, the third man in this story, the now former Prime Minister Najib Razak. What happens to him now? It's a Malaysian mystery coming up right now here in the Nexus. Hello, I'm Matthew Moore, and today in the Nexus, pensioners, prisoners and prime ministers, what is going on in Malaysia? Well, let's find out with Nik Nazmi. He actually took a few months off to help make social media videos for the victorious opposition. Zunar, very famous in Malaysia, is a political cartoonist. He joins us from outside Anwar Ibrahim's house. And finally, Nik Nazmi. He used to be Anwar's personal assistant and is now the youth leader for his party. So now we're all together. Let's put the tape into the video and watch a classic, Malaysia's Comeback Kid.
Nexus, in association with TRT World, presents The Comeback Kid. A story of a man forced out of retirement to save the country he loves from a wave of scandals. A tale of friendship, betrayal, and redemption.
Yeah, okay, enough of that. We get the idea. Malaysian politics is the stuff of movies. And in this one, there are three main characters. The figure of Mahathir Mohamad dominates, with Malaysians affectionately calling him the father of modern Malaysia.
It's like a miracle, really, a dream come true.
Now, as Prime Minister for all of the 80s and 90s, he is credited with transforming the economy from heavily agricultural to turbocharged F1, Petronas Towers, a new Asian tiger roared. He put Malaysia on the map, and in return, the people gave him 5 consecutive terms in office, from 81 to 2003, making him the longest-serving leader in Malaysia's modern history. But the so-called grandfather of the nation has a ruthless streak, turning on his younger proteges when it suits him. For example, sensing his deputy Anwar Ibrahim was growing too powerful, he fired him in 1998, and Anwar ended up in jail on sodomy charges.
I don't enjoy these things, it is not my nature to gloat over what happens to people.
He's also brought down 2 prime ministers, his successor, Abdullah Ahmed Badawi, and last week, Najib Razak. Seeing Najib drowning in scandal, Mahathir staged a comeback. And at 92, after 15 years in retirement, Mahathir led a coalition to take on Najib and his old party, the party that had been in power ever since the British left 60 years ago. Somehow, this one man pitched his personal credibility against the entire establishment and won. But even at his swearing-in ceremony, the world's oldest leader knew the future didn't belong to him. He had promised voters that he'd secure the release of the man they'd been waiting for years, and on Wednesday morning he kept that promise. The man he'd pushed towards prison 2 decades ago was pardoned, and he walked free.
Now, there's a new dawn for Malaysia.
And after all these years, it now looks like Anwar Ibrahim's time has finally arrived. Well, let's go straight to the house of the comeback kid, Anwar Ibrahim, and we have the political cartoonist Zunar waiting for us. Right there in the background you have I Will Never Surrender, and he is back, isn't he, Zunar? Is Anwar Ibrahim now the most powerful man in Malaysia?
Yes, I think he is, and I believe he is the only one who can make Malaysia great again. That is why I think because he has a character, he has a charismatic leaders, and he's not corrupt, and he has a willpower
Thank
to
you.
fight corruption.
Thank you,
So
Zunar.
I think because in Malaysia corruption is very, very huge. Yes.
Nik Nazmi, it seems that Zunar very firmly believes that although Anwar Ibrahim is the Prime Minister in waiting, he's still more powerful than Mahathir Mohamad because he's the future. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think they are both powerful in their own ways. I mean, I think Tun Mahathir has played a big role in this election, but definitely Anwar is definitely, played a big role as well in building the opposition over 20 years. So I think that combination has been very pivotal to the change we saw in Malaysia last week.
Do you think Mahathir Mohamad will keep his promise to step down in 2 years and allow Anwar Ibrahim to take over?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all agree that the deal was for Mahathir to be the interim prime minister, and after a while, after a certain period, he will hand over to Anwar, and I think I don't see any issue of that not being kept.
Yeah, but in the past, of course, Anwar has had reason to distrust him. Mahathir Mohamad was the man who fired him and then essentially put him in jail. And when asked if he could put all that behind him, well, here's what Anwar himself had to say about that.
I have forgiven him, and he has proven his mentor. He has made sacrifices. He was maligned in the media. I tell you, it is like deja vu. But he struggled, worked indefatigably hard together. He has now supported the reform agenda. He has facilitated even my release. Why should I harbor any malice towards him?
Well, let's go back to Anwar's house now. Zunar, it seems that Anwar Ibrahim has genuinely forgiven Mahathir Mohamad and is willing to work with him for the good of the country.
Yeah, I think the important issues that unite both them together is for the better of. They are thinking of the nation rather than politics. So they really can forgive each other. They can be friends again because the nation, Malaysia, need this at this moment. So they are really, I really think they are very, very sincere on this. So let's forget about the past. Let's forget about politicking. Now we move forward and bring Malaysia to the place it should be. So we are now very bad in economic and I think by both combination and with a very sincere will to reform, then can make this country great again.
Well, let's go back to Mahathir now. It's incredible. He beat his old party, the Barisan Nasional, the BN, which had ruled Malaysia for 60 years since independence from the British. Nik, if I could come to you, Nik Amaril Faiz, he surely was the only man who could come back out of retirement and take on his old party, which had been in charge for decades, and win.
Yeah, I think he's the only man that's able to do that because knowing him, he used to rule for Barisan Nasional for like 20 years.
Yeah.
So that's definitely the guy to beat Barisan Nasional.
Well, what do you think it was about him that made him such a force even now?
Well, mainly it has got to do with what he has contributed to the country as well as his influence towards the Malay community of the rural areas of Malaysia.
Well, what's interesting is he may be the world's oldest leader at 92, but unlike, say, Britain's Queen Elizabeth II, who's just 91, he's been elected and will have to run the government. Even Mahathir knows that's a bit funny.
Tomorrow, we will have a swearing-in ceremony of the Prime Minister. Yes, I'm still alive.
Nik Nazmi, Nik, you're in charge of the youth wing of Anwar Ibrahim's party, so it's a kind of a pertinent question for you. How do you persuade a coalition to come along with a 92-year-old man?
Well, I think the most important thing, I think, for the youth of Malaysia is to find the right combination of leaders who can lead the country and make it better for the younger generation. So if it's, it involves someone who's 92 years old, then I think we are fine with that if he's the best man for the job.
Oh, fair enough. Well, Mahathir may be 92, but he's pretty popular with the young people, and that's a really good thing, for him at least, because they actually helped him with his online election campaign. I mean, how many 92-year-olds know their way around Twitter and Instagram?
This is the most popular Facebook page in Malaysia. Tim Tumon claims to keep you pop culture by showing you all kinds of useful things. With 16.9 million followers, it is considerably more popular than the country's newly elected Prime Minister. Mahathir Mohamad has a mere 3.3 million fans. But his page is the fastest growing in the country, with 715,000 extra people following him this past month alone. Over on Twitter, a similar story. Before the election, he had just 15,000 followers. Now, more than 600,000, picking up more than 170,000 in the past 7 days. And this was his first Instagram post, which he joined just 2 months ago. Getting ready for the election, of course. That is his 91-year-old wife, by the way, he's laughing with. And this and other candid snaps have earned him more than 1 million followers so far. Very cute, of course, but there is a serious side. With 41% of the voters in the past election aged just 21 to 39, it's very important, no matter how old you are, to keep your finger on the social media pulse.
Okay, well, let's go back to Nik Nazmi now, also in Kuala Lumpur. Nik, what was it like trying to persuade young voters to come towards Mahathir Mohamad and Anwar Ibrahim? Was it easy for you?
Well, I think it wasn't difficult because both of them have their strong appeals among that age group, the category you mentioned, 21 to 39. And I think ultimately it's not just about personality, but it's about policies that the opposition coalition has put on offer.
Well, let's go back to Nik. Nik Amarul Faiz, you took 3 months off to actually make social media videos for the opposition. And we've got one of your little videos here running through. When you're trying to appeal to young Malaysians, what do you do with your videos to get to them?
Well, we mainly just focus on what Pakatan Harapan offers, mainly the manifesto that what they're offering. And we make sure that the content is delivered as what the manifesto says was the thing.
And what about the ethnic makeup of Malaysia? We know that that's quite an unusual thing for many countries. And we have a graphic here to show you. 67.4% indigenous Malay and other indigenous groups, 24.6% Chinese, 7.3% Indian. It's quite an interesting makeup, isn't it? I mean, how do you make a video that applies to everyone?
Well, our focus is mainly on the Malay community. So our message is tailored for the Malay. We do it in Bahasa Malaysia.
Yeah.
And the content is targeted that touches on the policies that involves around the ethnic Malays.
Zunar, if I could come to you, how important was this ethnic makeup of the country to this election?
Yeah, I think this is the first time when every race come together. And the previous election, they are all have a separate agenda and a separate time. I mean, there are an election where only Malays come out and Chinese keep quiet. And there are also election previously where Chinese only very strong wants to change, but the Malay and Indian keep quiet. But for this time, this is the only time when 3 of them come together and say we need to change. And what helps this movement actually is social media for the young. So I want to mention, comment the one you mentioned to both Nik before this, where the youngsters The youngsters, they use social media. You know that one interesting thing in Malaysia, that Instagram, Facebook and Twitter is no more social media during that time. It is an alternative media where people use it, people share. My cartoon example, even share around people's.
Yeah, let's take a quick look at one of your cartoons, actually. We have one here, which is symbolizing the deal between Anwar Ibrahim and Mahathir Mohamad. They've made a deal, and caught in between their very tight handshake is a certain Najib. Explain that one for us, Zunar.
Yeah, the one I drew in September 2016, 2 years back, yeah, when their first, these two person, Mahathir and Anwar, first met after 20 years. After 20 years, that was their first meeting. Yeah, they met and they shook hands in the court. So I took that. I make. I think this is very, very important when they shook hands. So, but again, when I draw cartoon, I will make sure that it is free copyright during that time for people to share, so people can understand what is happening in Malaysia.
Zunar, thank you for that. Now, Nik Nazmi, Zunar mentioned that the social media now, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, it's more than just alternative media. It is the only way the opposition, Anwar Ibrahim, Mahathir Mohamad, could get their message across, because the mainstream media, controlled by the government, gave them no airtime except to perhaps rub their reputations into the dust. That's about it.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we've been used to that. I mean, the opposition has never had access to mainstream media for so long, and the growth of the internet, and especially the social media over the past decade or so, has been instrumental for the opposition. And I think we relied heavily on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter to reach our voters.
Well, let's turn to the third man now, Najib Razak. He was Prime Minister till just last week, but now he's out of office. He is in big trouble. The new leadership has banned him from leaving the country. They want to ask him about a few big scandals you may have heard of. Now, when it comes to Najib's time in office, the allegations are plentiful. There are claims he tried to silence the press, accusations that he was behind the prosecution of political rival and opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim in 2014. But what are his biggest hits? Well, in at number 3, settle in, this one is complicated. It's rumoured that he was involved in the murder of his closest advisor's former lover. Alton Tuyasharabu was kidnapped and murdered in